afternoon, good evening. Thank you everybody for joining us. As Dan said, my name is Roger Liucci, Revit evangelist, amateur mechanic, geek dad, nerd of all things architecture and BIM. So what's new? There's a lot new, an enormous amount of stuff that's new. I'm going to focus on this presentation by basically categorizing the topics, right? We have a lot of features, a lot of new things. So first I'm going to introduce Revit ideas. We're going to go into the little things that Roger likes in this release, and then we're going to focus on as much of the new features as we can in the design, interoperability, documentation tools, as well as the dev tools. So your ideas. This version of Revit is so fantastic, I can't emphasize it enough. But how did we get here? From the the community, from contributions like yourselves. So go to Revit ideas, and I put a link in here, and we're going to share this presentation as well as the links that we used. There's nothing going on now. We need more for next year. So come to Revit ideas. It's in the Autodesk forum. Submit your ideas, because that's where these new features are coming from. So back to the presentation. This is only page 1, focusing on design. I've highlighted a few of my favorites: tapered walls, the RPCs, the path of travel. So I'll get into all of these. I'll do my best to demo as many as I can. But these are the things that I prefer personally, looking forward to and happy to see into this release. Contributed to 1 or 2 of them. Here's the rest of the features, at least the ones that we're going to be talking about. Again, my favorites are linking Rhino files and some enhanced PDF export, as well as the inventor workflows that have been updated. Then we got some in documentation. I know you see something highlighted there. I'll get into that. Again, it's really how you contribute and how Autodesk incorporates those wish list items. What's next? For the first time, I'm going to produce or share with you the public roadmap in my presentation. So we've always talked about, what's new in this release. What's next? Click on this link, and I'll bring us to a Trello board by Autodesk. It's completely locked down, but you can see who's contributing to it. It's the Revit public roadmap. So what was released this year? It's a nice way to look at the list of features for everyone, for architecture, for engineering, and what's next. So it's pretty fascinating to think that this public information is out there, and Autodesk is sharing their direction with us. So if you need more than that, you need help. No, there's a lot of help. Oh, well, maybe I need some help too. The help documentation. I've mentioned this a lot in my training classes and in my discussions with my clients. There's an enormous amount of information. It's a huge book if we were to print it all out, or I don't even know if we could print it all out. But anyway, go to the help documentation and review as well. All the videos and things are there. So let's get started into the new features of Revit 2022. I think the small enhancements are sometimes the best, because it's a day-to-day little minutia of improvements that really I get excited about. So remembering the last used tool, or remembering the last tab in the browser, or just simply improvement in functionality as we start using these tools. In training, you might have heard me say, every time you create or modify something, you check your options. So as we go through the properties palette, the modify palette, modify tab, the modify ribbon is always there. Now, as we use the tools, that Revit's going to remember those settings and how we like to use them. And this is the one I was so excited about. I know it's a little ridiculous, but when we have multiple values, we're selecting multiple elements in Revit, and we go to the properties palette, we'll see the values that are shared. But if the values differ, Revit always left it blank. And why did that bother me? I'm not quite sure, but it did. Now, finally, it'll report varies. And to take it to the next level, to show Autodesk's commitment with this type of thing, you can actually change what happens when the multiple values occur. It's a little strange that we would change it. What would you put? Place it into the Q&A. Tell me what you would put instead of varies. I'm happy with varies. I'm happy that the tool is there. Bottom line, they're listening to us. Here's another great enhancement, tiny little enhancement. Danny would love to see this one. You're adjusting the the size of the windows, the dialog boxes. Can you believe that some of them were locked down? Yes, now we can expand them. We can put them on multiple monitors. I know, it's little things. So when we're editing multi-line text or wall sweeps or things, you're going to see the ability to modify these parameters, these dialog boxes. I know, it's a little thing. So now we'll focus on design-related features, or the new features that are specific to the design of elements of architecture, structural, mechanical. I forgot to mention, take a look up here. This feature is related to architecture, construction, structural, just for your interest. Tapered walls. We got to do a demo of this one. So I'm going to jump over to Revit and take a look. But basically what we're getting at is, as we're modifying walls, we can have them sloped, and now we can also have them tapered. And what happens to the windows? I know you want to know, so let's jump in. Here I am in Revit 2022. So I'll grab a wall. I'll use my favorite control copy. Oh, hold on. Grab a wall. Can you believe I'm starting already? Control copy, there it is. I go over to the properties palette and I see that it is a vertical wall. What can we do to it? Can we make it slanted? Yeah, we can make it slanted. What about 15 degrees slanted? Sure we can. Oh geez, what happened to the window? You know they thought about it. You grab the windows, and those windows can be made slanted as well. Somewhere here, there it is, slanted. So nice little feature. That actually was one of the features that popped up in Revit 2021.1. But now what we could do is we could take that wall and we could also make it sloped. Sloped, slanted, same thing. We can make it tapered. Uh-oh, but what happened? We can't do that. So what it's basically telling us is that in the properties of that wall and in the structure of that wall, at least something has to be variable. So what's going to, to taper? So we can make one of these. Obviously, I would do something like a finish or an insulation. In this case, we really don't have a lot of opportunity. So let's assume that was an insulation item, and that's now tapered. And we switch it to tapered. And it's going to be, oh, I did it to structural. You can't do it to structural. So what I would do is I would come in here and I would insert a layer, move it down, call it insulation, and that would be my tapered one, not that one. Come on, Raj. Cannot have a 0 thickness. 2 inches makes sense. It's thinking about it. Is it going to throw me an error? No, it's not. So it's slanted now. Now it's tapered. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. So we edit the wall. We make a modification. The thermal layer is tapered. And it really should be able to just switch it to tapered. Not allowed. So the edit profile, so we have to reset profile. That's what it was. Oh, Roger. So that wall is now tapered, and we can do it in the type, but in this case, we're actually going to get rid of that other piece of curtain wall, and now we have a tapered wall, and I have to either modify the properties, or I can just get, and it's going to make a modification to this wall. Now, because I'm just grabbing the element and I'm making it tapered, we have to do an instance property, right? And there's the double glass. We have to do an instance property. So I could put a tapered wall and make modifications to how much of it's sloping, but this was on an instance basis. If I look at the property of walls in general, right, I could go and I could modify that wall and also make modification as far as, do we want to do this on a type level? Anyway, I spent way too much time on tapered walls, but it's a lot of fun. I mean, if we made it on a type level, then I could easily draw that wall along a path and it would all be tapered. And we can make modifications to individuals, or we can make the changes all at once. So let's rock and roll. I'm gonna have to skip this one. But basically, ArcVision's RPCs, they show up much better, right? ArcVision has released a 2.0 version RPC. Now Revit 2022 can make use of those new features. One of the things is easily turning off or easily making them look at the camera. You can also just generically turn it off. Now you can also add RPCs into a furniture family. So all of the use of functionality, basically create better photorealistic renderings with the ArcVision RPC enhancements. Joseph loves this stuff. If you have any questions about generative design, whether it be the Revit API or Dynamo or Python, let us know and add it to the question and answers. There's Q&A panel. There's all kinds of new features relative to generative design. So within Revit, we have generative design. We can go and we can create studies, things like the randomized object placement or the stepped grid placement. And now there's new options or new studies, new samples. Then we could take those samples if we wanted to and actually download them, modify them, and make new ones. So using Dynamo and the generative design tools, we can create our own and bring them back into Revit. Anyway, here's one that I'm going to feature. I'm going to demo. It's basically our root analysis tools. So we jump down back to Revit. I go to, I think I'll do it on level 2. Basically what we'll do is we go to analysis and we learn about the new tools available. So basically there are 4 new tools available. This was 2021.1 as well, and they've enhanced and improved a couple of options here. But basically we make a path of travel. What would it take to get from my car to the bathroom? And there's our path. We could tag it. We could get properties about that path. Now what we're doing is we're also have the ability to show obstacles and create more things that are obstacles, right? So when we're doing a path of travel, we have to consider doorways, we have to consider furniture and walls and whatnot. So now we can reveal the obstacles, we can make our own obstacle families, we could make multiple paths. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say, okay, I want to get into this room, but only available to get into this room in a one-way direction, all right? And I think I'll flip it with the space bar. So that's one way as well. Basically giving us the ability to improve our designs and consider people flow, social distancing. Obviously, it's something that we have to consider nowadays in our design. So again, from the car to the bedroom, it has to now go through the hallway out onto the observation deck and then into the bedroom. So again, the bottom line, right? Automate distance and physical separation requirements using root analysis features. Fantastic. So again, there's a couple of new tools I haven't discussed, but basically applying a grid would allow us to see the distancing and the obstacles, right? So paths would have to, traverse in between those obstacles. So it's really easy to do. You can make your own indicator, annotation and such. So basically the route of travel is going to be fantastic, and using these tools in 2022 will increase performance. Basically, there's a lot of tools, a lot of new features. As far as structural, I think this is the first time I've seen so many new features. So in this one, infrastructure-based, right, we have new categories that I'm going to get into, but basically modeling roads and bridges are improved, the objects and families are really intelligent, and we could place them essentially within our Revit models. Some people are going to be excited about the alignment station labels, but the architects, we just want to build a building. You guys deal with that. Speaking of things that I'd rather have somebody else deal with, shared site, right? Show shared coordinates and multiple projects and complicated projects. But basically, improvements have been done to the survey point so that it's much clearer, it's identified. We can make and rename these things. So within the project, depending on what international standards and what country we're building in, we could change these shared site naming conventions. So it's defaulted and everybody is on the same page. As far as mechanical electrical, new features for you guys, gals, and non-binary pals. Everybody in the design community, whether you're doing ductwork or piping or whatever, you're going to see features. So during these fabrication improvements, we have the ability to create these ductwork components, export them out for fabrication. There's a lot of new enhancements and features, but basically the model is going to be much more intelligent, communicating to us when we have open connectors and things like that, but improvements for everybody. Speaking of improvements, we want to improve our air quality in our buildings. So in Revit 2022, we have some new psychochromatic reports. Basically, I had to do some research, go to Wiki and find out what the heck that means, but we're talking about improvements on hygrometry, humidity, the ability to physically and thermodynamic properties of gas vapor mixtures. So basically our analysis is getting deeper and deeper. Bottom line, creating better spaces. The ability to export and share that data is also improved using GBM XML. Anyway, moving on. For everybody, right? So for all disciplines, new categories, and really that should be identified in the development as well, because using the API and in these new categories, more and more enhancements for creating and organizing data. So what are the enhancements? You got audiovisual devices, you got fire protection, food service equipment, hardscape, medical equipment, signage, temporary structures, and then my favorite, vertical circulation. So bottom line, new categories, ways to organize our elements. What's funny is we have the new categories, and as you'll see in the near future, in a slide or two, our ability to control and modify the categories after the fact as well. Talking about improvements on for structural and for engineering, again, so many different new structural properties available. The ability to create rebar, right? Quickly, 1, 2, placing rebar. Then the ability to identify that rebar and add it to sets. So quickly adding and removing rebar to intelligent sets throughout the building. Again, I'm skipping through, sorry for the structural engineers, but I really am curious how many people are using rebar all throughout the project, not just sample or typical details, all throughout the project. It's more and more efficient to do so because you can control when it's regenerated, when it's visible, when it's not visible. And now we're talking about actually getting true sizes for smarter collaboration, coordination, and clash detection. Again, more and more rebar settings and improvements. I'm sorry, I have to skip through this. I'm looking at the time and I'm running out of stuff. But our abilities to view them both 2D and 3D is improved. And then automating, right? So using the Dynamo nodes and the new tools within Dynamo, even in the player, you can automate the predefined ranges and abilities of creating rebar in sets and sharing throughout the project. This is throughout, so this is for everybody. Our ability to organize, so it's a lot easier to list and sort within the different dialogues, both in schedules as well as material. You'll see that throughout. Speaking of, in this case, you'll see a screenshot of a schedule. As I'm adding information into my schedule, from the available fields on the left to the schedule fields that show up in the documentation, you can now filter and sort, right? So do I want to control which parameter, put wildcards and get only matching parameters so that I can add that? Depending on the size of your project and the customization that you've done, bottom line, easier and faster to filter properties in schedules and available fields and schedules. You'll see this throughout. So this is a fun little one, right? What happened to my document, my content? You installed Revit 2022 right out of the box. You throw it on the computer and you start playing around and working around and you want to load some families. Where the heck are the families? So I do this every year. Last year there was a tool, as you could see right up in here. Here's 2021.1.2, right? Load Autodesk families. You can go out and find content, get content. Right here was a button. It's gone. So where do we get it? The first thing you would look at is the new ability to browse from the cloud. Okay, so better organized, available families with better previews. We can go and load them directly. But personally, when I want to load a family, I want to load it from my hard drive or from my shared server drive. So where is that content? Basically the desktop app. So I fire up the Autodesk desktop app, I start looking through, and there's an enormous amount of content, Japanese, Chinese, Russian. So it's all here in the desktop app. Kind of strange, but I wanted to point that out for you. So lots of content, you just don't get them by default. You got to go get them, or you browse from the web. Okay, so here's some features based on interoperability, right? Third-party tools, open standards, data exchange. Top of the list is PDF. So finally, we have a native 2D PDF export. But not just that, we have the ability to take that PDF, and as we're exporting it, set up rules and naming conventions. We could pull those names automatically based on the project or shared parameter in the project, shared parameters. So this is enormous. So what basically we're doing is we're exporting the PDF, right? So from the export dialog, you've seen this here before, right? And then I'm adding not only where it goes, do I want to combine them, right? What the sheet set is, but also all the naming parameters that I might want to add to the PDF as a result. So this can be set and customized depending on who's receiving the PDFs, what industry, whether it's building department or going to the client or going to some other agency. So it's amazing. And I think everybody's going to enjoy this. So bottom line, it's easier. It's even detecting the output size and orientation. So if you have different size sheets, if you have full size sheets, half size sheets, 11 by 17, 8.5 by 11, this PDF generation is going to detect the size. That's pretty big. So I've said a lot, but check it out. It's well worth it. Improves documentation. Okay, interoperability, linking Rhino files. So you got to love this. I'm literally in Revit, and I have insert and normally link CAD, import CAD for Rhino. Now we can link it. You should always link CAD. If you've taken a class of mine, whether in person or online, I always say link CAD. You never want to insert CAD. So now we can link Rhino files. DWGs, DAccept, DGN, ACES, SATs, SketchUp files, as well as Rhino files. Link them right into the project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to 3D. Here's my cute little building. I'm going to insert link CAD, make sure I'm filtering out the Rhino file, and pull in the Prometheus Rhino file. Thank you, Joseph. Basically, he did another presentation doing automation tools and such. But basically, here's that Rhino file into Revit. I'm going to see it in my visibility graphic dialog box under imported categories, and I can see the layers. Huge, huge. So I'll be able to import and link a Revit file, a Rhino file, and then control what layer is visible. This is enormous. All right, again, I can't dwell too much on it because I have so many different slides to cover. Let's keep going. Again, any questions about that? Hit Joseph up in the Q&A. So we can do it for SketchUp models, we can do it for Rhino models, we can do it back and forth between Revit, Autodesk FormIT Pro. If you haven't played with FormIT Pro, it's really a blast. Could be on the tablet, could be mobile, on the laptop, save it to the cloud, import it, export it out of Revit. So here's a little design, link it in as a CAD file, import it in as a CAD file, or the AXM FormIT format. So the improvements, the materials between that object, right? So you have all the materials that you're playing with in FormIT are going to come over directly into Revit because they're the same materials. So the same fidelity that you've been doing. Talk about interoperability. Autodesk has always been supporting and developing on the IFC format. So for those doing that, you're going to see that IFC4 export, much better, geolocated, really good information. Hopefully this resolves some of our problems we had in it in the past. This one is so big that I think it needs its own presentation, Inventor to Revit and Revit to Inventor. So fantastic. So Revit and Inventor has always had a pretty decent relationship, but now we're able to improve that relationship and control what assemblies and how simplified they are, and whether sometimes if they're not, we don't even need to bring them simplified. We can bring them in, control the amount of data that's coming in between Revit and Inventor. Enormous amount of stuff. Check that out. So just generic improvements. This was, again, available after 2021. Sharing views. So more of our communication is in the cloud and coordinated in these spaces. So we're going to talk about BIM Collaborate Pro and the Autodesk Construction Cloud, but basically here's your taste into it. I could create a view really simply. So I've created a couple of views. Here's a test view. I can go out and see it. Whoever I'm sharing it with will be able to comment and view that model. It's basically a view, so you can control how much of the model is visible. Anyway, we don't have the time for it to load. It's just loading, and I'm using all my bandwidth right now. it's basically an ability to bring somebody in and have them comment and collaborate with you. Free. Speaking of cloud, we really need to talk about the construction cloud. But what we're doing here is basically saying in 2022, our ability to open these models are improved. So you're going to see it in the file dialog box, as well as in the Revit home screen. So let me jump over to Revit, right? I'm in a regular view. I go over to the home tab, and this is improved. This is faster. It's all called Autodesk Docs, not BIM 360, because we're moving to the Autodesk Construction Cloud. And again, I don't want to wait for the for the improved loading. Anyway, in addition to collaborating, right, using the Autodesk Construction Cloud, BIM Collaborate Pro, we have the ability to not just use design collaboration, right, Revit collaboration in the cloud, but we also have the ability to take a model and just simply save it to the cloud. So all of these improvements, right, save as cloud model, as somebody was talking about. So that's in Docs in general. When we talk about the Construction Cloud and BIM Collaborate Pro, I think we'll bring it up after in the Q&A. Basically, Revit and its ability to collaborate in the cloud is improved, and we're moving to the Autodesk Construction Cloud with BIM Collaborate Pro, basically BIM 360 design and model coordination. As far as documentation, you'll see an enormous amount of improvements. I know I've been saying that a lot, enormous, but our ability to schedule is greatly improved. So we can schedule anything. All elements are schedulable. All elements have, well, let's look at this slide first. So the ability to filter through the things that we're scheduling, really enormous. Let's talk about one in particular. The ability to add shared parameters in key schedules is going to help a lot of people, right? So as you're looking at the schedule, you'll be able to pull from, I paused. So when we're doing the schedules and we're splitting them across sheets, now they can actually, we were always using filters and conditional statements to say, I want this schedule to show up on this sheet and in this sheet. Now we can actually put them in each sheet, right? So basically I could say, I want this schedule on this sheet, then I want to split it and also show it up on that sheet. So if I go to one schedule and I start adjusting the height, the length of the schedule, it will adjust on the other sheet. So constant, lots of improvements in this regard. As far as exporting it, yeah, bottom line, column separated values by default. I already talked about the multiple values. Let's talk about tags. So there are a lot of people in this presentation, in this room, virtual room, that are going to love this one. Basically, our ability to rotate tags, multiple leaders across tags, tagging curtain walls is improved. So there's a lot of features that are going to help the way things look, right? So enhancements in 2022, more flexibility, accurate, readable, improved for documenting. I think there's a lot of people who are going to love just something simple. Maybe I should have put that in the simple things, the little things. Huge. People love it. As far as I said before, that everything is taggable, right? We could create multiple multi-category annotation, and basically everything is taggable. So all elements, even the generic items, are going to be taggable. We can add properties to them. So there's ability to add shared parameters as far as in these multi-category tags. Bottom line, a lot of improvements related, all categories, right? Structural internal loads, all kinds. So when you're looking through the tag dialog box, right? So you go over to Revit, you go over to annotation, and you go over here to tag, right? There's a lot of ability now to predefine what tags are being used on what category of elements. So everything is going to be available here. We had a lot of limitations in the past. Back. So I'm looking at the clock. I got 10 minutes left, and I got a lot to talk about. But let's, in general, I think everybody has seen this. You're linking your models into, you're linking all your consultants and your partner models, and then that link gets broken. tags get lost. It's happened probably to more than we'd like to admit. Improvements in 2022, right? This kind of linking is going to remember the elements, right? So basically the element ID is exposed into that tag. So there's really improvements as far as your linked tagging elements across a link. So these things should find themselves once orphaned. So we're looking forward to seeing that improvement. General, this is probably the simple thing as well, right? We want to add the suffix and the prefix. I'm just going to keep going. I only have a few minutes left, but there's a lot more slides to go. Not that many more. So again, standards. People like to revision things differently, and I heard that on the other side of the pond, people really hate the way the revisions were working in Revit. So this should make a lot of people happy. Meeting standards, meeting international guides. Bottom line, everybody's going to enjoy it. I can switch from alphanumeric to numeric right in the same revision schedule. Slopes and elevations on ramps, I don't think I need to demo that one, but you know, it was a little annoying. A lot of people were using floors instead of ramps just because of this, right? Our ability to modify the sub-element of a floor. Now, ramps are obeying and giving us the ability to annotate and tag. So everybody's going to be happy about that one. Now we can go into the visibility graphics dialog box and make modifications to core layers, right? So we used to have to do this a little bit more difficultly, right? By editing the sketch and modifying what was visible and not. So now this is a global thing in the visibility graphic dialog box as part of templates. We can show non-core layers depending on you know, our desire. So this is pretty cool, and I think it's just a feature that improves productivity overall. Grids and 3D views. Do I need to demo that? Yeah, let's do it. I know it's kind of silly and simple, but you know, we have. Oh, look, I can't get it. We can make these grids visible just by simply going into the visibility graphic dialog box and modifying the grids that are available, and then going into the view properties, right? So show grids. What layer do I want? Like what level do I want to show the grid? So I'll say I want to show level 1 grids and how they pair, because I could have grids that show from, you know, that change at the 15th floor or something. So this is cute. Maybe better if I showed it in Hidline. So there's our grids as well as our levels. And I just hit the tab and cycle through to get one. But you surely get that one there. I don't know. I guess it's fun. Back to the PowerPoint. Right, so I can hide them by element, by category, using filters. Our ability to control them and their halftone, their weight, whether they're transparent, to what degree. So can be also modified on an instance as well as a type basis. So more improvements, oriented style to navigate in the model. I think it's cute. Maybe I should have had a category of cute features. This one is pretty great too. So basically, in our view, we can modify elements and include their phase property. So basically, when we're in Revit, we always had the ability to control phases, but I don't think I was the only one who really hated this dialog box. I really think it's not necessary anymore, and I'd love to talk to people about this to see what their thoughts are. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the view, right? I think I had a 3D section view kind of pre-set up a little bit, right? So I go into visibility graphics, I go to filters, I add a filter. I'm going to call it a, I'm not home, phase filter, all right? So phase filter is when walls are selected, right? And their phase created, right? We're going to add an override. So I don't have any phases. Nice one, Roger. So first you go to phases. We're going to create a couple of phases after learning content, right? So I go into visibility graphics. I go into filters. I add a filter like phase filter 1, right? And when phase filter 1 equals phase 1, we can add that to the view filter and say, when something equals phase 1, make it green, right? So what I'll do is I'll simply grab a couple of walls, modify their phase created property to be phase 1. Delete the room. Come on. So the view cannot have a view override. So here's a problem, right? We have view overrides and we have these phase filters. I really wanted this to be a solid fill as well, right? So I have a simple representation, right? The idea is that we have elements that have different phases. We have more complicated phases than, you know, new, existing, and demo. So now in any view, with any view template, we can control the visibility and graphic overrides for elements based on their phase created or their phase demolished. It's huge. I tried to represent it, but I think you understand what, you know, what this has, what indication, what improvements this is going to do for your workflow. But I'm curious to see, are people even going to use the phase graphic overrides? All right, this is a cute one. Do I really like, you know, a pastel, light pastel versus the default color scheme? I mean, I joked a lot that the default color scheme was kind of bold and harsh a little bit, but they took it to the extreme and now it's cute and fluffy. So lots of control over our elements in the view, right? So all kinds of visibility graphic overrides. You'll see them in all you know, plenty of different categories. We can move them around. We could turn them on or off. So I can go into this dialog box, right? I'm in the visibility graphic filter dialog box. I could multiple select, shift select, control select, get in here, turn the filters, enable them or disable them, as well as control the visibility. So our ability to navigate around in this dialog box, plus our powerful control over elements based on these new properties, right, like phase created, enormous. Bottom line, improve productivity. It's going to happen. I know I say it, this one I really mean it. I mean it in all of them. So there's all kinds of improvements in documentation. This one is fantastic. You delete the parent view, and the dependent views can remain. So you decide, yeah, let's leave them. So, you know, I don't think I would have deleted them anyway, but now they stay. So all kinds of improvements on tagging and documentation, right? So mechanical and electrical people are getting the love by making sure that these rotated tags also maintain and more categories are taggable, bottom line. So I'm running out of space, and I don't mean to do this to the MEP people, but there's a lot of new features for mechanical, electrical, great tagging improvements for vertical pipe, as well as the nested families and pinned elements. So more improvements, panel schedules improved, our ability to control the elements outside is always fun. So new improved capabilities. We're talking about a lot of new nodes, 67 new nodes for the Dynamo geeks to access elements within the model. I mean, there's one that I can create in the Sketch API. So you can create elements previously in you know, Dynamo and via the API, but now I can do donuts, or what they call sketches within sketches. There's all kinds of color fill improvements via the API, right? Initiating cloud models and links within. So basically, if you're into automation like we are, like Joseph is, you'll see these improvements and you'll thank Autodesk for them. Let's get back to questions and answers. So I'm sure people who have some questions about these new features, or maybe just want to say thank you very much. But let's go. Let's get to it. How many questions do we have, Joseph?
All right. Yeah, we've got some questions rolling in here. We've got a question here. Sorry.
Thank you very much for helping out here.
No, thank you for that wonderful presentation. I think you hit on all the most important features there, and
eat up too much at the end.
No, you know, I think it was just right, and you know, once you really got rolling, the questions started coming in. So, so yeah, I think people are really interested in a lot of these new features. one of the questions that Andre has regarding the native PDF ability that Revit 2022 now has. He's asking, given the downstream workflow where most contractors have bought into Bluebeam, do we recommend PDFing via native Revit or Bluebeam plugin?
That's not fair, Andre.
I think it would probably depend on, you know, their specific workflow. If they've got something very entrenched with Bluebeam.
I agree. I mean, just because, geez, where was it? Hold on, let me get to that. I think just because of our ability to control the naming itself is going to be really, really helpful. So the people who are creating PDF sets for different agencies are really gonna love it, right? Our ability to go ahead and say, I want to be able to configure that 2D output, right? So once it gets out of Revit, Bluebeam is fantastic for markup and collaboration, right, in the Bluebeam studio. We know how great Bluebeam is. This is not a Bluebeam presentation. But to get the PDFs out of Revit, right, and our ability to customize those naming conventions and to control those naming conventions, this is fantastic. We're getting real information from Revit to the PDFs, both in the name as well as the properties. You know, live linking is still enabled. So we're doing our best to improve what Bluebeam is going to use, in my opinion. Does that sound right?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Definitely.
What's next? Thanks, Andre.
Okay. Another question here regarding the phase filtering there. So which one has the last, basically wins out or is able to override the other, the phase dialog or the filter setting, do you think?
So it's not the phase dialog box. So, well, actually, I'm sorry. Basically, we can't have any overrides if we want to do the view filter overrides. So if we want to go into the visibility graphic dialog box, right, and when we say that we have filters, right? So I have a filter that says walls that equal phase 1. I have another filter that says, you know, the same thing, walls that equal to phase created phase 2. So we can modify this stuff only if there is no already predefined overrides in the elements. So basically what we would do is we would wipe any overrides and do it this way, in my opinion, right? Because we can, with also seeing the improvements that we can do to, you know, in the phase dialog box, I mean, in the filter dialog box, so I'm in the filter dialog box and I'm enabling, so I can have hundreds of filters within the project and decide which are enabled and which are disabled. So there's enormous capability here, and I think it basically means this is where we're going to go moving forward.
All right, good deal. Okay, another question here regarding generative design. Can we schedule and analyze the output of the generative design items? For example, if there's 100 different types of precast concrete with their own profiles, can that be scheduled and output into a single or few views and sheets? I can probably take this one. I think that this will really all depend on the way that you set up the script and how all of the different iterations are organized within the space. You can add in new parameters and be able to group all of your iterations based on those parameters. And then also based on those parameters, you can have all kinds of additional automations set up to place those in three-dimensional space where you need, and then set up views and sheets accordingly. So I think that'll definitely depend on, you know, just how the script is set up. But yeah, with all of these new nodes that are available in the newest Dynamo, I think you'll have a lot more flexibility to customize the creation of views and sheets, and so a lot of powerful tools there.
Yeah, that's what I said too. By the way, if you want to learn more about generative design or automation in general, this guy. This What's next?
I do my best. I think Python really and understanding a little bit more about the API, it really opens up a whole new world of what Revit can do. There's not always a button that can perform the operation, so there's a lot more functionality underneath the hood. So
and they've
so
exposed even more, so the hood is wide open.
Right.
And get to your Revit ideas for those that are missing. Submit
Exactly. Okay, let's see. Another question here. Let's see. They're asking if Rhino models can bring in the Rhino-defined materials as well.
Yes.
Now it's able to display them. Does it import them as a Revit material? I don't know if they do.
Yes, it does.
Oh, okay.
Let me see if I can go over to that one. Well, I mean, I don't think I need a slide to confirm that. So yes, yes. When we bring in the Rhino information, and here it is. Here's the slide. Yeah, so we're linking our Rhino model. We're getting all the latest information. The layers are going to be something that's going to be available to us. And yes, the materials are coming in to become Revit materials.
All right. Wonderful.
Of course, those are supposed to be shades of blue. But yes, now
right.
Now we can modify.
Yeah, sorry. I was modifying them all over the place when I originally created that model with adaptive components. So I was creating a lot of different shades and gradients so that there's a lot more flexibility there.
Yeah, but you'll see that we can also do the overrides, right? So when that element is in our model, and I'm actually undoing to a certain point, no, it's right there. Right, so we go into, oh, what is the view cropped? Sure looks that way. Yeah, so when we go into visibility graphics, we get to see the element, right? So we get to see the imported categories. We get to see the current panels, right? We can modify the current panels, override them. And then I did weight, I did pattern, solid. Let's see if this works. Shaded with edges. All right, so we'll work on that. throw us something off the script. Yeah, it didn't work for me, but
yeah, we'll definitely check out exactly how that functionality
get
works.
the name of the person who asked that question, and we'll follow up.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we have another question here from John. Are you offering any training to get up to speed on Revit 2022?
Absolutely. When you're ready. Well, we're using 22 today. So Nick Marchek, another application specialist, Revit guru, construction cloud guru, is teaching a Revit Essentials class right now as we speak. We have virtual machines all set up in the Amazon workspace, and we're conducting Revit Essentials in a Ring Central meeting with an Amazon workspace, and we're using Autodesk Construction Cloud or BIM 360 to host class files. So we're fully prepared to teach what's new in Revit 22, and we are already doing it.
Right, and that's a good point. That we're there as part of that training. We're getting into the Autodesk Construction Cloud, so then we can test out the functionality of Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro, and yeah, that showing off the way that you can collaborate with multiple users that are in different locations.
Right.
And yeah, you probably all are familiar with BIM 360 design, maybe, but yeah, those that entered the pandemic already having BIM 360 design, they really didn't skip a beat. They were able to continue their production just as they did before, because yeah, they're all set up to work from anywhere. And so I think that's
with BIM Collaborate Pro, you essentially get what was BIM 360 design, Revit collaboration. So take your model, initiate it to the cloud, everybody contributed as if it was a central model on your server. With BIM Collaborate Pro, you also get the model coordination or clash detection in the cloud. And we do those classes as well, and we've taught both Revit Essentials, BIM 360 design, and model coordination in our online training classes. Cool. Well, that was a good question.
All right. Very good. Okay, let's see. There are a few more questions here. Let's see. Can I download 2022 and play with the functionality in a demo mode without starting the clock on a 30-day trial? I don't believe you can. I think once you start that trial, yeah, you get the full 30 days to try out the latest version, and that's an important piece to remember when you Autodesk does provide trials for all of their latest versions of the software that are out there.
You download the trial, you're going to get 2022. Mm-hmm. But explore the new features right ahead of time. You could just go to the help, right? So you click on the help documentation, or you press F1 within the application. You could Google Revit 2022, brings us to the new features. So before you, as they say, start the clock on the trial, you've already explored the new enhancements. You've already watched the videos, right? You know what to expect. The help documentation is enormous, like I said. So it'll focus on the what's new, and you guys could reiterate those until you get this recording. And then you could literally watch and demo all the new features, or kind of learn about the new features.
All right, great. Can all tags use the multi-leader function?
Yep.
All right, good. So no limitations there.
No.
All right, good deal.
So many new features. I mean, I don't know if I emphasized it enough. 67, 68 slides, and almost every slide was a new feature itself. But then there are little minutiae within that new feature. A lot of new features.
Right. They really did their work to bring those to us. It's kind of like a gift. a new year, it's new Revit 22 collection of gifts there. Right. Okay, I've got one last question here. Is BIM Collaborate Pro now part of the AEC collection, or is it going to be part of the AEC collection?
Right. No.
No. It is not. As part of the AEC collection, you get access to Autodesk Docs, which is the underlying document repository and project management. So there are a lot of additional features than just having it as cloud storage. You have RFIs and issues with Autodesk Docs, but with BIM Collaborate Pro, you get that Revit Cloud work sharing, the clash detection in the cloud, as well as many other design collaboration features.